Normally when we teach about how animals move, what we might call gaits, and the pattern that those gaits leave on the ground, which we might call track patterns, we go to the beach where we've got lots of sand and we can follow dogs around for quite a while, and that really, those are our best teachers really when it comes to gaits. But when we've got snow, we can do the same. And here I've got a trail of a dog and it's moving really fast and it's in a gallop. So let me show you the pattern when we have a gallop. We have groupings of 4 tracks together, and then a space, and then a group, and then a space, and then a group, and the animal's actually slowing down here. But if we come back here and look at this group, we can see that the pattern is front track, and then hind, and then hind. And when we have front and front, and then hind and hind, and a space between the groups, we know that that's a gallop, and that's an animal that's moving pretty fast. And as a famous tracker once said, if in doubt, track it out. And so I follow this trail and it goes straight into the water. Clearly an otter. Nice trail of a brown hare here. And hares have really fluffy feet, especially at this time of year, which means that you don't see a lot of toe pads and distinction in the trail. But most of what we need to know to tell this is a hare can be seen from a few meters away. The pattern is key, so we've got 2 smaller tracks which are far apart, followed by 2 larger tracks which are in front, which are much closer together. They're less staggered. And what we can see is that they're unusual hares. They have front tracks which fall first, and then the rear tracks extend beyond the fronts and land in front. So actually the direction of travel is this way with a hare. And the size of it and the distance between the groupings is enough for me to tell. If I wanted to be absolutely sure, I'd have to get in there and look for the position of the thumb. And I can see that it's really quite far back in that track. Very difficult to show you on the camera, but when the thumb is really far back, that's a clue that it's a hare and not a rabbit too. And here's the beaver motorway, and if we hone in on here, we'll see this is a hind print of a beaver, and very often what you'll see with a hind is the central 3 toes are the most prominent. So you see these very long fingers. This is the rest of the foot here, and that's very clear beaver track, and there's another one there, and you can see those 3 very prominent fingers. Busy night for the beavers. The snow is completely compressed from last night, so we know this is super fresh, and you can see all the sign on this alder tree, I think. Yeah, alder. I've seen a lot of domestic dogs on my walk today, but this trail here jumped out at me. And look how straight the tracks are. And this is a typical fox trail. Difficult to see any distinction in the tracks at all because it's very deep snow, but the trail itself suggests energy efficiency. It suggests an animal that's very, very smart at saving energy, and you can see that each one of these holes actually has 2 prints in it. There'll be a front and a hind in each one of the holes, and that tells you the animal is stepping exactly in the same hole every single time. And just look how straight it is. That is not the behaviour of a domestic dog. That is a wild creature whose behaviour suggests that it matters to it on cold nights at -5 how much energy it expends getting from A to B. Always we try to track it out, and so I follow this fox trail, and where does it go? It goes under there into this little hole through there. Ain't no dog going in there. Still on the fox, and it's working its way all the way through and into horrible stuff like this constantly. All the way along this embankment through all the brambles and all the horrible stuff, and it's probably hunting voles or hoping to spook a bird or something like that. Very different behaviour to a domestic dog. Here's a great example of how deep snow isn't easy for tracks. And you can see this is actually a pheasant track. There's a toe pointing forward, there's one pointing back, and there's two out to the side. And I see the same pattern regularly as I move, but I don't see any clarity in the tracks. So I have to use my understanding of the tracks and the substrate and the distance between the tracks and how that might equate to the animal that I'm trying to follow. And this is consistent with the pheasant. And there again, there's that classic sort of star shape that you... Gotcha! There's some nice clear pheasant tracks confirming my suspicions of that earlier trail. Eventually we find the tracks of a roe deer, very heart-shaped, two cleats there. And if we follow it, you can actually see where it's dug down into the snow. And it's been feeding on some sort of bulb. Here's a rabbit trail for comparison. Still the staggered fronts and the paired hinds in this direction of travel, but much smaller. In fact, the front track I can cover with my thumb very, very easily, which I couldn't do with the hare. And so same pattern, different size.